I've had one of my kids just said, "You're an asshole. I'm never talking to you again." But when they're adults, yeah, they do.
The most shocking part is not that one brown child might refuse to film. It is that nearly an entire generation could finally decide the cameras are no longer welcome. In this completely fictional sister wives commentary scenario, most of Kody Brown's adult children are done participating, and their silence creates more drama than any screaming match ever could. Because when this many children step back at the same time, it stops looking like a scheduling problem. It starts looking like a family verdict, and that verdict would hit Kody harder than another public argument. He could defend himself against one angry child. He could blame one disagreement on distance, misunderstanding, or the influence of an ex-wife. But how does he explain several adult children reaching the same conclusion? How does he keep calling it disloyalty when the pattern becomes impossible to ignore? That is the real tension behind the refusal. The children would not need to expose a secret or deliver a dramatic speech. Their absence would expose the problem for them. For years, the Brown family's biggest advantage was access. Viewers did not simply watch Kody and his wives discuss plural marriage. They watched the children grow up inside it. The kids gave the show warmth, chaos, humor, and emotional credibility. They made the family feel real. But that also meant their childhood struggles became part of a television product before they were old enough to understand what permanent public exposure could mean. Now those children are adults. They can finally decide whether the cameras that documented their childhood deserve access to their marriages, homes, careers, and children. And once that choice becomes theirs, the answer may be very different from the one their parents expect. That is where the drama begins. Kody might see filming as part of the family's shared history. The adult children could see it as the reason their family has never been able to separate genuine emotion from public performance. Every disagreement becomes larger when millions of strangers are waiting to choose a side. Every apology becomes suspicious when a camera is present. Every reunion risks looking less like healing and more like material for the next episode. The children would understand something the parents may not want to admit. Being visible is not the same as being understood. They have watched personal moments become public debates. They have seen viewers analyze facial expressions, silence, seating arrangements, social media activity, and who attended which family event. A child can say almost nothing and still become the center of a controversy. If they appear calm, people may accuse them of hiding resentment. If they show anger, that reaction can define them for years. If they defend Kody, they risk criticism from one side. If they challenge him, they risk being accused of disrespect or manipulation from the other. There is no safe reaction when the entire family relationship has become content. That pressure would be enough to make some children walk away, but it would not be the only reason. The deeper issue is control. When the Brown kids were young, the adults controlled the family structure, the moves, the rules, and the decision to film. As adults, refusing the cameras may be the first boundary that cannot be negotiated around them. They do not need permission. They do not need every sibling to agree. They only need to stop showing up. That simple decision would completely reverse the family's power structure. Kody has spent years expecting loyalty to flow toward the center of the family. In his mind, disagreement can easily feel like rejection, and distance can feel like betrayal. That makes the children's refusal especially explosive. They may believe they are protecting their private lives. Kody may believe they are publicly choosing their mothers over him. They may be setting a boundary around filming, while he interprets that boundary as a personal attack. And once he treats their privacy like punishment, the children receive even more proof that stepping away was necessary. This is why the conflict would not need a single final argument. The breaking point could be years of smaller moments piling up. A phone call that never happened. An apology that came with conditions. A holiday that became a loyalty test. A child feeling remembered only when filming resumed. A private disagreement being discussed by people who were not present. None of these moments alone would explain everything. Together, they could create the feeling that the family only pays attention when pain becomes useful. That feeling is devastating because it changes the meaning of every future invitation. Is Kody reaching out because he misses his child? Or because viewers are asking why that child disappeared? Is a family gathering about rebuilding trust or proving that the family is not as divided as it appears? Is an apology meant for the person who was hurt or for the audience judging the person who caused the hurt? The adult children may no longer be willing to guess. Robyn's position would make the situation even more tense. She could argue that the absent children leave Kody unable to defend himself properly. If they refuse to film but continue speaking elsewhere, she might see that as unfair. From her perspective, the show could become a courtroom where only one side is allowed to present evidence. But the children could turn that argument around. They may say nobody is stopping Kody from calling them privately. Nobody is preventing him from rebuilding a relationship away from television. The only thing they are refusing is public access. That difference would be difficult for Kody and Robyn to confront because private reconciliation offers no immediate proof. There is no scene showing Kody apologizing. There is no emotional preview. There is no public moment that changes viewer opinion overnight. Real repair would be slow, repetitive, and mostly invisible. It would require calls that are not recorded, visits that are not announced, and effort that receives no applause. Would Kody still make that effort if nobody could watch him make it? That question could become more damaging than any accusation. If he reaches out only during filming, the children may believe the relationship is being treated like a storyline. If he reaches out consistently when cameras are gone, he proves the relationship matters on its own. The children do not need a perfect father. They need evidence that their value is not connected to their usefulness on the show. The mothers would also face an uncomfortable test. Christine and Janelle could understand why their children want privacy, especially after watching the family fracture in public. But they also know that the show helped create the opportunities they have today. Meri could understand how painful it feels when a complicated relationship is reduced to a few dramatic moments. Robyn could fear that silence from the children will allow the harshest interpretation of the family divide to become permanent. Every mother would have something to lose. If they encourage the children to return, they risk damaging trust. If they fully support the refusal, they weaken the show that has documented their lives for years. If they discuss the absent children on camera, they may violate the exact boundary those children are trying to create. And if they say nothing, viewers will fill the silence with their own theories. There is no easy position, which is exactly why this conflict has such strong dramatic power. The children's refusal would also expose a major difference between the generations. The parents use television to build independence. The children may need to leave television to find theirs. For Kody and the wives, the show became a way to tell their story in their own words. For the kids, that same show may feel like a story they inherited without choosing it. The adults gained a public voice, while the children could feel trapped inside a public identity created before they knew who they wanted to become. That does not make the parents evil, and it does not make every child a victim. It makes the situation more complicated and more believable. The show may have given the Brown children experiences, opportunities, and memories they value. Some may still enjoy appearing. Others may appreciate the platform while rejecting the pressure that comes with it. But gratitude does not create a lifetime contract. Benefiting from the show as a child does not mean owing the show access as an adult. Money would become another uncomfortable part of the debate. Some viewers might assume the children are refusing because they no longer need the show, while others might believe a larger paycheck could bring them back. But money cannot solve a problem created by lost trust. Payment may compensate someone for their time. It cannot erase the public consequences of discussing a parent, spouse, or sibling. If an appearance damages a private relationship, the check becomes part of the resentment. That makes the refusal more serious, because it suggests the emotional cost has finally become greater than whatever exposure, money, status, or career opportunity filming can provide. This is where viewers would split into two loud groups. One side would argue that the children have every right to disappear. They would say privacy is not revenge, and boundaries are not betrayal. The other side would question why anyone connected to the family can speak publicly when it benefits them, but demand silence when criticism becomes uncomfortable. That debate would keep growing because both sides touch part of the truth. Public figures can choose what they share, but viewers will still question the parts they hide. The difference is that the Brown kids would finally accept that consequence. They may know people will call them bitter, controlled, ungrateful, or afraid. They may know their silence will create rumors. But being misunderstood by strangers could feel safer than being misunderstood by their own family on camera. And once one sibling proves that life continues after filming, others could become braver. That is how a quiet refusal becomes a powerful family movement without anyone officially organizing it. One child protects a spouse. Another keeps their children off television. Another stops discussing family conflict in public. Another agrees to see relatives only without production present. Different reasons begin producing the same result: fewer Brown children on screen and less control for the parents who once shaped the family narrative. The sibling relationships would matter just as much. In a family this large, every child has a different memory of Kody and each mother. One may remember support where another remembers absence. One may want reconciliation while another needs distance. Refusing to film would not erase those disagreements, but it could stop production from placing siblings against each other. They would no longer need to defend one parent by challenging another child's experience. Protecting those sibling bonds could become more important than proving which version of the family history is correct in the end. Kody could respond by blaming the mothers, but that would likely make the situation worse. The adult children are old enough to form their own conclusions. Suggesting that they are being controlled would dismiss their intelligence and reduce their boundaries to somebody else's scheme. Even children who still feel close to Kody could become defensive if he refuses to believe their decisions belong to them. That would create the most painful contradiction of all. Kody might demand to be treated as the father while struggling to treat his children as independent adults. The more he pushes for loyalty, the more they may pull away. The more he demands a public explanation, the more they may protect their silence. And the more he blames other people, the less reason they have to believe a private conversation will produce real accountability. But the children would not escape criticism either. Refusing to film is a strong boundary, but silence cannot fix every relationship. If they want Kody to understand their pain, they may eventually need to speak directly to him. Avoiding cameras could create safer conditions for that conversation, but it cannot replace the conversation itself. Privacy gives the family a chance to heal. It does not guarantee they will use it. That uncertainty keeps the drama alive. Are the children stepping away so they can rebuild privately? Or are they using privacy to avoid a relationship they no longer want? Does Kody truly want them back? Or does he mainly want the public rejection to end? Are the mothers protecting their children? Or are they allowing distance to become permanent because confrontation feels too painful? Nobody gets an easy answer. That is why this kind of drama can feel bigger than shouting. A loud fight gives viewers an immediate villain and an immediate victim. A mass refusal creates uncertainty. Nobody knows which relationship might still be repaired, which child has completely closed the door, or who could return under different conditions. Every absence carries a separate question. Every careful answer from a parent sounds incomplete. The tension continues because the audience can see the result of the conflict without being given the private details that caused it at all. The biggest impact would fall on the future of sister wives. The series can continue following Kody, Robyn, Christine, Janelle, and Meri, but the original promise was always bigger than 5 adults. It was about an enormous family trying to make an unusual structure work. If most of the children refuse to participate, the show loses the people who reveal whether that structure succeeded beyond the marriages. Their absence would become impossible to hide. Old family photos would show faces viewers no longer see. Holidays would feel smaller. Major life events would happen somewhere beyond the cameras. The parents could describe their relationships with the children, but the audience would hear only one side. Every unexplained absence would raise the same uncomfortable question: if this family is healing. Why do so many members want no part of showing it? That question could force the show into a completely different form. Instead of following one family, it would follow the consequences of that family breaking into separate lives. Christine and Janelle could focus on their independence. Meri could continue rebuilding her identity. Kody and Robyn could confront life after plural marriage. But the missing children would remain the shadow behind every storyline. Their silence would remind viewers that the deepest family developments are happening somewhere the show cannot reach. And that may be the strongest statement the Brown children could make. They would not need to attack Kody. They would not need to expose Robyn. They would not need to blame their mothers or reveal private messages. By refusing to film, they would simply remove the family's ability to turn their emotions into evidence. Kody could no longer point to a brief appearance as proof that everything was improving. The mothers could no longer use a child's support to strengthen their own version of events. Production could no longer build an emotional reunion around people who had not agreed to participate. The children would control their stories by refusing to provide one. That is what could finally make most of them walk away. Not one shocking secret, not one explosive confrontation, not one person convincing everyone to rebel. The real breaking point would be the realization that the cameras no longer help the family communicate. They make every wound more public, every apology more questionable, and every act of forgiveness more useful to somebody other than the people involved. Walking away would not mean they stopped loving their family. It could mean they finally understood that love and access are different things. Kody may still be their father without being entitled to their participation. Their mothers may still receive support without being allowed to share private details. Siblings may remain close while choosing completely different relationships with the show. That is a much stronger boundary than anger, because anger still asks for a response. Silence removes the argument entirely. The only way Kody could challenge that silence would be through consistent private action. No dramatic apology designed to settle everything at once. No demand that the children publicly defend him. No test of whether they respect Robyn. No expectation that they return because the family needs a powerful season. He would have to accept separate relationships with separate children, each moving at a different speed and carrying different pain. That could be the hardest adjustment he has ever faced. Kody once stood at the center of one enormous family. Now he may have to become a father who travels toward his children instead of waiting for them to return to him. He may have to listen without correcting their memories. He may have to apologize without demanding immediate forgiveness. And he may have to do all of it knowing viewers will never see the effort. If he can do that, refusing to film may actually save some of these relationships. Without cameras, the children would have less reason to question his motives. Without an audience, Kody could stop defending an image and start hearing the person in front of him. The family might never become close in the old way, but it could build something smaller, calmer, and more honest. If he cannot do it, the refusals will become permanent. That is the final sting behind this fictional drama. Most of the Brown kids would not be walking away because they wanted to destroy their father or end the show. They would be walking away because staying required them to keep reopening wounds for an audience. Their silence would force Kody to prove whether he wants a relationship or simply wants their return on camera. And if the choice is between protecting their peace and protecting the Brown family image, the children may have already decided which one they are finally willing to lose. This story is completely fictional and created for entertainment.